Hello, welcome. There are 14 attendees at this webinar, and I'd like to welcome you from the International Renewable Energy Agency here in Abu Dhabi. My name is Saliha Lockwood, and I'm managing the IRENA Abu Dhabi Fund for Development Project Facility. And I'll be starting the presentation now so that we can keep to our original time. We have 14 out of the 20 who registered into the system right now. Firstly, I'm very happy to welcome you on a day where we're opening our new headquarters, the IRENA headquarters in Abu Dhabi. We have an inauguration of the headquarters here. It's quite an important day for us, and we're happy to host this webinar on this day. And secondly, you're the selected applicants who have gone through our process from the start, which commenced in November 2014, where over 87 applications came in, and out of those 73 were considered eligible, and 34 were then shortlisted by the panel of experts. And you're part of the 22 that were selected by the committee to submit full project proposals. So I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you to get through this process where the experts have looked at your projects technically, and the committee has tried to make a strategic decision for geographic spread and technology diversity. So this webinar will be recorded and it will be provided online, and the purpose is to assist you to prepare your full project proposal submission. The purpose of the recording is that those applicants who could not attend the webinar would also then be able to benefit from it. At this stage, I'd also like to clarify up front that all submissions, the full project proposal submissions, need to be made in English. And then, right now, just a few administrative aspects before I get into the content of the presentation. If you have any questions at any time during this presentation, please type them into the chat box and we will address them after the presentation ends. You may also raise your hands if you wish to ask a question, and we will unmute you after the presentation ends in order to pose your question. Please note when you are making your interventions that there is a slight few seconds delay from when you make your intervention and when all those who are on the webinar hear you. If you cannot see the chat box, please do email adfd@irena.org, and we'll try to address your questions through that mechanism as well. And it is best if you use a headset. So firstly, I am going to switch. I hope you can all see my presentation. The presentation was also sent by email. What I'm going to do is go on to the second slide, which is the contents of the webinar. In the first part, I will be discussing the project characteristics that are important to focus on in your full project proposal submission. I will then talk about the evaluation criteria, basically the rubric of different aspects that the application form focuses on, but also what the experts consider, and then move on to the timeline in the process so you know where you are in the process and when the final decision making will be. And finally, we will go through the online interface aspects so that you know that in mid-June you'll be able to log in and to submit your full project proposal form. So I look forward to questions at the end, as mentioned, and please do note them down as we go along so you're able to remember them right at the end. Thank you so much. So we're on the third slide, which is on the project characteristics. And here there are three main parts of the full project proposal form, which I will go through in a moment as well. Again, it's divided by whether projects are technically feasible, economically sustainable, and or socially and or environmentally beneficial. In the technically feasible part, in the new full project proposal form, which I'll also switch to now, and it will take a little bit of a moment to switch to the form. It's the Word form that you have. And I hope you can see it now. I think it's come up now for many of you. You will see at the beginning a part which is on summary update. Here it asks you to put forward your project objectives. And on this point, we would like to emphasize, please do mention how the project will benefit the country, but also be more clear about the objectives of the project. The reason that we're making many of these comments in the full project proposal form in this webinar is because these are feedbacks that the experts have made. So, so for instance, on objectives, there were some question marks on the clarification of exactly what's being put forward. On going back to the presentation, the other main aspects that need to be emphasized are the appropriateness of the technology specifications, that the resource assessment needs to be reasonable, and that the project is managed well. On the sound management aspect, please do focus on clarifying the management approach taken and the roles of the actors within the management. In the economic section, please do clarify what your revenue plan is and what the use of funds would be for your project. Also, finally, for that section, please also ensure that there's clarification on the cost effectiveness of the project. In the social and environmentally beneficial part of the application, we would advise to, in addition to the points made on this slide, to elaborate on stakeholder engagement and on local community benefits, and to be more specific. So overall, the projects that have got through the process and the ones that are being evaluated in this third cycle require a lot more specification on the project details in each of the 3 sections of the application. So the application, right now on the 4th slide, and the application form generally covers these 3 aspects. And I will mention here, it says the feasibility study includes technical components, commercial and socio-economic as well. And I will go back to the application form to explain how you could help to answer the questions there in this regard. Also, we would like you to know about the fundamental core aspects on eligibility and what the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development requires. So one thing is that there is, at this stage, when we're making the final decision making, a preference for IRENA members in the final recommendation by the committee to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. At the beginning of the application process, we allowed all IRENA members and signatories in those states in accession to apply. But at this stage, when final decision making is made, that will also be a critical strategic decision. If there's a question mark over several projects, those which are IRENA members may be given preference. Finally, from the conditions of the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, there's 3 core elements. They want a full feasibility study that includes many of the components outlined in the application form. And thereby, a lot of the application may actually be addressed by your full feasibility study. So please make a note where that's the case, because we will also ensure that experts find those components in your full feasibility study. I'll go back to the evaluation experts aspect so that you know which sections I'm talking about. It's mainly the commercial and the commercial part where it might also be covered in the full feasibility study. The second main component is the importance of having a government guarantee. And here a purchase power agreement is not appropriate for a government guarantee. So please note that, and please try to ensure you have this ready by the 30th of June. And if there are any challenges, please do let us know well in advance. So here we are in terms of the timeline. We are at the 5th slide, where we're saying that you're at the point of preparing your full project proposals in the middle of the process. So once you submit it at the end of June, the panel of experts will take July and August to review your projects, and the advisory committee will then look at those projects again in September. So we submit to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development the final list of projects in October, and you would not know the result of that decision until December on a one-to-one basis. We would notify you, and it would then be publicly announced in January 2016. I have put on this slide, and this 6th slide, where you can find the full project proposal form on our website, and it's in the how to apply part of the website. You can download it from there. In mid-June, you will be able to use your username and password to log in and to be able to submit both the full project proposal form and additional documents such as the full feasibility study and government guarantee letters and other details on the project. And again, we've enclosed in this presentation a reminder of the guarantee letter templates for government and non-government entities. So going back to the application, I would first also say thank you for all the applications that you did in the first stage. We used a similar process in this second full project proposal stage, but we have a lot more drop-down menus for you to look into. So you have this part about choosing your type of technology, and then also the amount of power output. Then technology components and specifications. As I mentioned earlier, please be as clear as possible on this. On question 3, there's a question on renewables resources, and question 4 is on project classifications. So be as clear as possible. So I'm quickly going through these items, but I think what's going to be of great use to you is to see how this is going to be assessed by the experts. And here I'm going to show you something that we will share with all the applicants subsequently. I hope you can see it now. Okay, it says expert evaluation considerations, and all this numbering is aligned with the questions that are posed. Here you'll see the statements which the experts look at when they look at the answers to your respective questions. And there's a Likert scale that the 3 experts look at when they look at your project. So as you can see, if you go through this, These are very specific statements made on each of the points. And if you go to the commercial section, we mention here in question 12 that most of this section could be covered in the full feasibility study. So if you could make a note that that's also useful for us so that we can ensure that all the data is captured in the application form, but it's important that the full feasibility study has as much as possible in it. So this gives you an idea of exactly how your project will be considered. Now I'm coming up to nearly 15 minutes of your time, and I'd like to open out at this point to questions. I will return back to the presentation and to the main project characteristics slide to help in discussion. Okay. So we've opened out the floor to any questions. Please do go ahead and pose your questions, and we'll try to answer them as much as possible. And also we can go back to specific documents that we've shown you as well during this webinar. Also, just before there's some questions, we're still waiting for questions coming in. There haven't been any questions as yet. We'd also like to say that the project proponents that are online, there are 15 who we can see are attending. We don't publicly provide the information about the project proponents at this stage because they are going through a selection process. And we also, you know, they're shortlisted right now, and I think there's some sensitivities amongst the project proponents themselves as well. So if you would like to ask specific questions, that would be great, but otherwise I can go back and clarify further. Hello, I understand that one applicant would like to ask a question. We will unmute that applicant. Mr. Fuad here, if you could go ahead with your question. Mr. Fuad Kayar, we see that you have raised your hand to ask a question. We have unmuted you, so if you could unmute yourself, maybe you could pose the question. Oh, right. Sorry, I just see the questions that you're posing. There are questions here. Sorry, I've just seen the questions that several people have posed.
Can you hear
me?
me?
So, Mr. Fuad, you've asked about the government guarantee.
Yes, I have a specific question. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you very well, but please go ahead. I'll try to hear you.
Okay. What I was suggesting is that we understand that you said the PPA is not a government guarantee, but is it possible that a bank provides you a guarantee in terms of complete risk evaluation, and then you take that as a government as a guarantee? Now, when I say a bank, I mean to say a bank which is owned by 50% owned by the government. Is that possible?
Again, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I think this is better. I'm just switching with mics. So you were asking about a case where if a bank is half owned by a government, whether that would be something
Yes.
that could be a way forward. We have asked the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development on this question before. Their position is that it's the government entity involved in the international borrowing affairs of the country that needs to provide this. So if that state bank is the entity that borrows for the country, is the international borrowing entity, then I think that might be something that they would accept. But from our experience from other countries in the region, in your region, and actually it's in the case of India, a state bank guarantee was not accepted by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. So, but please do contact me bilaterally on that, and let's see what we can do.
Okay, I will do that. I'm still working on it, so I will contact you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So if we just go back to the previous questions, I can. We have a question from Joel Bamogo, which is, in order to perform the financial study and evaluate the levelized cost of electricity, would you please clarify what are the specific terms of the IRENA loan? It depends on which list you are on in the DAC list of ODA recipients. So what I can do is share with you on the screen the website, which will be right for this to explain. So if you go into our About the Facility part of the irena.org/ADFD website, you'll see a link there to our draft list of ODA recipients, which is an Excel sheet. And there's two columns there for the countries. And in the first column, all those countries can have a 1% rate. And all those in the second list have a 2% rate, loan rate. And it's for a 20-year period, including a 5-year grace period. So you need to check which list your country is in, and then see exactly what loan rates are offered there. And that's in the About the Facility part of the website. I can send that to you separately. So Joel Bamogo, if you would like to ask a follow-up question to that, we've unmuted you. If you would like to go ahead.
Thank you, Selena. I think that's pretty clear. I will go on the website and check the conditions, but I understand it's either 1% or 2% on a 20-year basis.
Yes, exactly. But we can discuss this also and go through your question as well. If you've got any follow-up to your question, please. Is it clear that?
Yeah, that's clear. It's clear. Yeah, thank you very much.
But do feel free to contact me after the webinar. Also, Diane Black Lane, there's a question being posed on if you're shortlisted and you meet the full project requirements, does that mean automatic selection? Just to clarify our process, you're shortlisted at the executive project summary stage, which was the 34 projects, and that from that 12 projects were not selected and 22 were to submit full project proposals. At the full project proposal stage, the experts and the committee, they score and comment on the projects, but the list at that stage remains the list that is sent to the committee in full. So at the executive project summary stage, only 34 shortlisted projects are sent to the committee, and then they make the selection. But at the full project proposal stage, the full list is scored and commented on, as it is in the first stage. But the full list is the one that goes to the committee to make an overall selection. So not all of the full project proposals would be selected, mainly because there's only $50 million on the table each cycle. In this cycle, it's 52 million. In the previous one, it was 59, so that's why there was 57 million worth of projects. That tends to be the 59, sorry? No, it was 57 million that was submitted, that was allocated in the second cycle. Sorry, just being clear, because we had a rollover of 59 million, and that's why it was 57 million allocated. The third cycle, we have 52 million, and as a result, about 5 or 6 projects come out of that process. So not all of them would get through. And that's also why we try to share the shortlisted projects with other funds. If you are interested in that, please do let us know, and many of you have done that because it's come through our shortlisting process. Mr. Nicolo Teodori, you have a question. Sorry, Diane Black Lane, would you like to ask any question and a follow-up to that?
No, thank you for that explanation. It was very clear.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. Teodori, can a 100% government entity sign the guarantee letter on behalf of the ministry?
No, the body that we are mentioning is a body that is naturally borrowing money from outside the country to support energy projects. So it's not the Ministry of Finance, but it's a 100% government body that is borrowing money for energy projects, specifically for energy projects. This body will be also participate financially to the project. So the question is that sufficient for a guarantee if they will give or will send a guarantee to the ADFD fund?
Yeah. So thank you very much for your question. It is a entity that actually is involved in the international borrowing affairs of the country, then it's the relevant body, and that's the terminology that the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development has clarified to us always, that it's the government entity involved in the international borrowing affairs. But again, please do communicate to us on this. We'll also keep this on record, and we'll share it with the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development as well. So thank you for your question. And Ina Hoxha, there's a particular project in a country that Ina Hoxha is asking about, and the government there has never given a government guarantee. They normally give a government support letter. Now, this is the distinction here. You'll see at the end of our presentation, if you are a government entity applying, the first letter here is sufficient, which is a letter of intent from the International Borrowing Affairs entity. So I hope that answers your question, because if it's a government entity that's applying, then they're able to use this approach. The issue is that when it's a private sector entity, the government guarantee letter on the right-hand side is the one that needs to be provided. And again, we can discuss this.
Sorry, just if may I have a follow-up question? Hello?
Could you please repeat what you said?
I was just saying, may I have a follow-up question? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted just to say that the project is private, so we would need a government guarantee letter. My only question was that the country government that we're discussing only gives letters of support for energy projects. It's never given a guarantee letter. So I was just wondering whether you can maybe discuss, and it's a very strong government support letter in terms of, you know, the off-taker, which is government-owned, not paying, the government will step in. So I mean, it's not a full-on guarantee, but it is a support letter from the government. So I was wondering whether you've ever accepted those in this particular country, which is never given, and you can check that because I did, has never given actual guarantee letters.
Again, you know, they have particular requirements by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. You know, International Renewable Energy Agency is a facilitator in this,
Yes.
so we will certainly facilitate all of your questions, the respective questions from your particular project. And I also see the next question, which is, if you could go back to the question.
Have you had any projects?
Just go back to the open questions.
I think it was, have you had any projects in Kenya?
Yes, we've had projects from Kenya. I'm just trying to open out all the questions again. Yes, we have had, but they haven't got to the final stages. Yours did. So let's see. Let's continue this discussion. We will be in touch with the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development on these particular cases, as I said, with the initial question as well at the beginning of the set of questions. We also have that case. We have another question which is from Brian Kuhn, and it's in another country, which is what about the country that is unable to give a sovereign guarantee? So I think that's a similar case as your case. So let's try to communicate this to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, and we're facilitating this process. So we have tried to communicate this as well earlier. This is a fundamental cornerstone of the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development requirements. And in terms of having projects before from these respective countries, they haven't got to the final stages, these projects. So this is the first time in the third cycle.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay. So the majority of the questions have been on government guarantee, but I'd like to go back to also we'll communicate that to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, but in terms of the full project proposal form, I'm going back to show that to you again to emphasize the final checklist at the end of the form, which says full feasibility study needs to be submitted, and also the government guarantee letter. So here, can you see the form? Yeah. So just trying to scroll down to it. So as soon as the online interface is open, we'll also let you know. We're trying to do it before the end of June. And again, the final checklist is the full feasibility study, government guarantee letter, and a completed application form. But I understand one of the main challenges of many of the project proponents is this aspect of government guarantee. And going back to, I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes more on the actual fundamentals and the feedback that came in. The final feedback. Yeah, I'll repeat that. So my colleague is just reminding me, before I go back to the fundamentals of our selection aspects and the learning from the experts, is the deadline of 30th of June for the government guarantee, and please do communicate to us where you're at with that, and I think some of you have already raised some issues. There's a question here from Diane Blacklane. Thank you. Again, the full project proposal document deadline is the 30th of June. Yes, it is. So this full project proposal form submission needs to be made by the 30th of June. It's the form and any attachments, and we hope to have the online interface ready as soon as possible before mid-June. I know we've mentioned mid-June, but we'd like to do it before then, so you have so you can start submitting if you're already ready with the form. Now, going back to the project characteristics, again, please do clarify what your objectives are right at the project summary stage. That will help in the selection process, but also clarify the management approach and the roles of the actors in the technical section. And in the economic section, please make sure that you're clear about how the funds are going to be used and have clarification on the revenue plan. And then finally, in the social section, please do elaborate on stakeholder engagement and local community benefits, and to be more specific on that. So it's 4:40 here. I wanted to thank you for your participation. And they're actually nearly full attendance now because it is 19 people on. Just for those who joined a bit later, I'd like to also inform you that this webinar will be recorded, and we can supply this as well to those who were not able to attend the full webinar. Okay, we have a procedural question from an applicant. I know I was going to end the webinar, but it's quite important if we come up with some specific points. So there's an error with number 14 and 15. I also wanted to inform you at the beginning of the webinar that what our numbers also jump from question 4 to question 6. But we had these glitches in the application form, which is supposed to be encrypted to be able to capture the data electronically. So we apologize if there's anything that's come about as a result of that. So we'll look into this error that's coming up, and we're unable to expand the fields for question 14 and 15. I'll have to look, because maybe we have specified it that you're not supposed to expand the fields, but we'll get back to you on that. That was Mr. Lewis who asked about that. So we will get back to you on that aspect after this webinar. I think that's the final question. Thank you so much for your input, and we. Okay. So my colleague Ali, who's been really behind the form and the technical aspect, has mentioned that you can actually expand the field. You don't need to expand the field. You type it in, and the form will capture it. So if there's still an issue, please do contact us, Mr. Lewis. So thank you very much, all those who participated actively in this, and we will get back to you with an update on the results of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
The webinar is now closed.
Are we good now? Okay, that was perfect.